In the previous video, I said that large language models were easy to use, so now I'm going to demonstrate the use of Microsoft Copilot, a large language model that we all have access to as BU faculty and staff. The three things I'm going to show you are an example of some possible essay topics for an AP English language class, a way to summarize a large document efficiently, and I'm going to ask Copilot then to generate some new problems for me from a problem set from last year that I had. All right, so to get there, what I've done is just typed Microsoft Copilot into Google, my AI companion. I click through. I'm going to use the work version. This is what I recommend. And now I'm inside Copilot. And there's a little bit of clutter here, but we're going to be looking at the bottom part of my screen, which is the prompt window where Copilot's saying to ask me anything. And indeed, you can ask it anything. It's much broader than Google. You can ask it queries. You can ask it for resources on the web. But you can also ask it to collaborate with you. And this is what I'm going to demonstrate right now. So for the first prompt, I'm going to ask it to think in the mindset of a high school English instructor. And I'm going to ask it to generate 5 possible essay topics for my AP English literature class on the character of Queequeg in the novel Moby Dick. Okay, so it's off and running very quickly. And you can see that Copilot definitely understands Moby Dick and Queequeg at some level. And here are 5 essay topics it generated, thinking about Queequeg from anything from a cultural bridge, using Melville, talking about tattoos, talking about his friendship with Ishmael, talking about his coffin as a symbol of life and death. So definitely, maybe these aren't the deepest possible questions you could generate, but there are definitely starting points which you could think through as an instructor to actually generate interesting prompts potentially for your English literature course. Moving on to something more substantial, we at BU generated these AI task force reports to describe what BU administration could beneficially work on. And those reports are pretty large. I have one over here, the BU AI Task Force report, which I'm going to upload. So one thing you can do is upload documents into Copilot. And it's in PDF, but that's no problem. These large language models like ChatGPT and Copilot can understand PDF. And what I'm going to ask it to do is, maybe I don't have time to read the entire 30-page document right now, but maybe I do have time for it to generate an 8-sentence summary of this document. Okay, so this doesn't take more than a few seconds. And it's got 8 sentences there, and I'm going to look through that with you to think if that's actually what this report described. And indeed, it hits the highlights of what this report is talking about. It talks about the critical embrace of Gen AI, first thing out of the gate, exactly the main recommendation of the committee. And drilling down a level, there are lots of thoughtful things in that document, which definitely include new pedagogy, cautions about using Gen AI detectors, risks of privacy and security. So all of that is correct. Centralized decision-making, that is a recommendation of the committee, right? We want to have this done centrally and not by fiefdoms and separate units within BU. And thinking about training and support. So in 8 sentences, this has actually done a reasonable job of synthesizing a very large document and giving me something that actually makes me potentially want to actually read the longer document and understand it better. And now I want to do a more deeper dive into something a little bit more technical. So for this one, I'm going to upload a problem set that I offered last year in CS 237, a probability and statistics course. And let's just take a look at that problem set for a second to see what's in there. Okay, so this is a homework assignment. It's a bunch of word problems that broadly relate to probability and statistics, thinking about topics like sampling, noisy channels, sending bits over the wire, something about proofs by contradiction, detecting defects in products. So a bunch of probability and statistics problems. All right, so now I'm going to take that homework that we just looked at, and I'm going to use what's known as a persona prompt, where I'm going to specifically direct Copilot to act as a computer science professor, look at last year's homework assignment on Bayes' theorem, and suggest a new set of questions on the same material at the same level of difficulty. Okay, so it reviewed the homework assignment from last year, and it immediately comes back with something that I wasn't expecting. at least not until I had written this prompt, it first of all notes that not all the questions are about Bayes' theorem. In fact, when it reviewed the questions, it realized that only problem 4 was really about Bayes' theorem. The other 3 were about different topics on statistics that didn't have anything to do with Bayes' theorem. So it identified that, in spite of the fact that this problem, which it repeated here, never used the word Bayes' theorem, didn't speak about Bayes' rule at all, but it correctly assessed that this one problem of the 6 used Bayes' rule. And then based on that, it said, okay, I'm going to shape some new questions in that spirit, in the style of that question 4. And it does so in a somewhat interesting way. It generates problems that involve medical testing, spam detection, and another problem about quality control. And if you look in the language of these questions, it's not something just like a simple rewrite. Copilot is using new terminology like sensitivity, specificity, true negative and true positive rates, as well as changing up the questions a little bit from the way that I originally drafted them. So in thinking about writing a new problem set for next year, a very natural and easy starting point is to do something like this and have Copilot collaborate with you on at least giving you a starting point. It can also go further. Down at the bottom, Copilot provides some natural next prompts. Like, let's say I decide to use these problems. Can you provide solutions to these questions? And it can, of course. And also, it does so in quite nice format. I mean, this is the style of format that I'd expect a student to write up. Defining events, looking at conditional probabilities, using Bayes' theorem, formatting equations. That's a nice write-up. That's a full credit answer, provided it's correct. I would have to check it, right? I wouldn't necessarily use it verbatim, of course, just like you wouldn't use anybody's solution until you proofread it and checked it. But you can go through and I'm sure verify that that is correct answer. So this is a time saver. If you can help collaboratively use ChatGPT in your actual everyday workflow. So that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you.